Okay, I want to, we've covered a lot. I want to just get through now Google Scholar story. What I'm showing you here is my little hack for how to, so let's say you've got thousands of references in your library, okay? And in a typical PhD, I get asked this a lot, how many references do you have? It's not going to be all of them, but it's not going to be 10 or 20. It's going to be maybe 200, 300, 400. I have a YouTube video where I talk about my actual numbers and what could be a useful benchmark for you. But regardless of the number of them, with the system or the little hack that I used in EndNote is to rate the sources. So you get a little 5-star rating, which I hope you guys use for my courses. If you do any of my courses, please rate and review my courses and give it whatever stars you think it's worth. But the same thing applies in EndNote. And the system that I always used was that if it was a reference that I definitely thought would be in my final report, I gave it 5 stars. And I could then sort on my rating column, and I could actually go back and double check that I'd included all of those. Because when you're doing a literature review, you come across all these great things and everything. How are you going to remember that you want to include that in your final report? This referencing system or this rating system is going to be your best bet to do that. And then let's say you give it 4 stars, where you think it's very good. You're not convinced it should go in your final report. And then maybe 3 stars. Yeah, you'll have a look at it later. And then 1 and 2 stars you could use for lower levels of importance of those references. Because remember, let's say you've loaded 1,000 documents in there. Other than your memory of the author, the year, the conference, the journal, etc., you're going to struggle when you're writing your paragraphs to remember what's the good stuff to bring in. So use that 5-star rating, and you can quickly get access to the top ones. And also, it's just something to go back to compare and remember when you've done now your analysis and you're writing up your final report. You have to go back into that mode that you were in doing your literature review when you were spending more time with your sources. And that 5-star rating is quite useful just to float the most relevant references up to the very top of the list. Okay, now I want to teach you guys the Google Scholar hack. And I show you this in the course, right? But here we go. And I want to come back to the archival question that we had earlier. So Stephen asked about using an archival source. Now, the answer to your question is simply this. Is it likely that Google has referenced it? Because remember, you've got all these academic databases, and not everything is in any one academic database, okay? And remember that Google is only as good as its algorithms of searching databases that it has access to. Now, Google won't always have access to the free text, which is the PDF, because some of those are on subscription and hidden behind a paywall, which you will have access through your student login. But Google, given the power that it has, which we all know about, will almost always have access to the metadata. Hear me? And the metadata is what you need to include in your writing, in your citation and your reference list. The metadata, not the PDF, not the free text. The PDF you still need to have access to do your work, to do your research. But if you click that little button there, when you search on Google Scholar for whatever it is that you're looking for, let's say it's your archival document or reference, whatever it is, and go and test it out this afternoon, Stephen. Go and see if whatever it is that you want to reference hasn't somehow been indexed by the almighty Google algorithm. I'd love it. I've never found anything that I was looking for that I couldn't find through Google, whether it's a book or a movie or an academic reference source. So in Google Scholar, you go type in what you want there. If you've got those little quotation marks there, it's got the metadata. You click that little document, that little icon there under the reference, and up pops this little window there called Cite. Now remember the 5 categories that I showed you on an earlier slide? Those are the 5 there: MLA, APA, Chicago, whatever. And you see at the bottom of that little window there, it's got BibTeX, EndNote, RefMan, and RefWorks. Now, those are other source libraries. I don't know about ones that are not listed there, but if you click the EndNote button, when you've clicked on those quotation marks for the source that you're interested in referencing, it'll drop a file into your downloads tray. When you click that little icon, EndNote will open up, and that metadata will create the record of that reference in your EndNote library. That's all you have to do. Then you can go and attach the PDF to that record in EndNote. When I figured out that hack, okay, saved me hours and hours and hours and hours, because Google is not a research database, okay, but it is a very powerful indexing search engine. But you're only going to use it for that. You're only going to use it for the metadata, and you only need the metadata for your search. You shouldn't be using Google to do your research. You shouldn't be typing in your research questions into Google. Okay, we know that that's a dangerous path, because what it's going to do, it's going to give you the secondary research of Wikipedia and articles and the rest of it. You must go and do your primary research in the academic databases. And that's how you know what you're looking for. So when you find what you're looking for, very often when you go to Google Scholar, you already know what you're looking for. You know, I'm looking for Alkema's paper on CodeFest in 1999. And that's enough to triangulate the search engine onto that reference. And what you want from Google is that Google has done the hard work to organize the metadata of that reference. You click it, you pull it into EndNote, it's created that record for you, and then you add the PDF. I cannot emphasize to you guys how important that is and how many hours you're going to save if you use that method. I'm begging you to please go and try it. And yes, I'm fairly certain that the others, it will apply, because remember, that metadata is again in the standard format. So you can then export or get access to that metadata as a text file and then bring that into Mendeley. So into Yabagarai, Lionel, go and have a look and see if that applies to Mendeley. I did qualify by saying it's the 4 that are listed, as I showed you on Google Scholar. But you can go and play around with Mendeley. Go and have some fun.